All right, Jeanette, so what I was wondering is how naming non-state torture and having a framework around non-state torture, how that is meant, what has that meant to you in your life?
Well, from the beginning that I started talking and telling, I was using words like torture, but nowhere did I see or hear torture anywhere talked about except in reference to the Holocaust of Nazi Germany. That's the only reference that I could find anywhere, but my police detectives did listen to that. I don't think that they understood it, and because there wasn't an existing framework until I saw your all's work. I couldn't put the pieces together because I didn't have the correct verbiage to make it understandable. But when I first heard you talk about non-state torture in 2004, the pieces started coming together for me, and I felt much, much calmer and much more able to tell my story about what had happened to me.
So before you had the framework and the naming, what was your life like?
It was pretty chaotic. Even though I had forwarded a legal case, there still were too many missing parts. I still had to, even after 1992, I still struggled to make it explainable as to what had happened. And all of the things that had been used, treachery, lies, costuming, electrocution, confinements, beatings. We weren't, at that time, we were barely able to mention the words incest, much less torture. I was speaking torture, but even the people I was speaking to did not understand or have the terminology. They really thought I was crazy. I mean, where does that happen? And of course now we know it happens because the law enforcement has the pictorial evidence of non-state torture. It's called pornography, it's called child pornography. And the things that we were saying from our very infancy on up into adulthood, and in fact did happen, and now we have the pictorial evidence. It's torture, but we still needed the language of non-state torture to make it understandable for everyone. Instead of picking apart pieces of our torture, it's now put together as what it is. It's a continuum of torture that begins in childhood with our families and extends all the way into institutions and into our early adulthood until we can escape. But it's truly, having that verbiage, it's freed me in so many ways. It's almost hard to explain how freeing it is.
Okay. And how has your life changed now that you have that verbiage and that framework?
Well, now I can make my story understandable to others. I can advocate for the changes that are needed. And because I do believe that everything that we've been talking about, or what I'm talking about at this point at the UN on the issue of sex trafficking and prostitution and non-state torture, it begins there with non-state torture in infancy and the young. Because after you've experienced that, in 1992, I told the whole Kentucky Assembly, the senators, the Attorney General, all of them, I am very fortunate that I am not a prostituted woman today, a serial killer, or indeed dead. Those were very viable options for me. But instead, I was able to choose another path, and I had a lot of helpers along the way to help me get there, but probably nothing's helped me as much to do this work to change what's going on in the world by having the language of non-state torture as a way to explain to others what we're talking about here. It's not one thing, it's not another thing, it's a continuum of many, many things. And most of it, if you look at the language that's put out at the United Nations, non-state torture being accepted at the United Nations, is going to give a framework that we can build laws and statutes and actions around to help the young people that and the children, the small children that are still there today, and many are. It's not me as a survivor. I weep and pray for those that are still enduring non-state torture today.
So what is your dream for the future now?
My dream is to have non-state torture the law of all lands and identified as violence against women. It's gender-based. Women and females in particular are targeted for this. Not to say that there are not male children as well, but it's gender-based violence. My hope for the future that it's recognized clearly, not just at the United Nations, but at NGOs all over the world, NFAs. I want everyone to have that as working language to be able to explain what is happening. I do believe that there are many women that have come out of prostitution, and the stories that I'm hearing from them, there's no doubt in my mind that they've experienced torture. They have yet to be able to fully hear and incorporate within themselves the language of non-state torture. It will truly free them. It will truly help them make sense of all of this and how it occurs, how the patriarchy paradigm is wrapped up in non-state torture as a way to dominate and control.
Thank you, Jeanette.
There you